All right. Hello, everybody. This is Christopher Prosh with Veterans for America, first Chaplain Corps Vet Voice podcast. So today we have amazing gentleman with us. I know him personally, Pastor Doug Bankson. He is running for State House in, correct me if I'm wrong here, Pastor, the newly created 39th District of Florida State House.
Yes, yeah, there's been a lot of changes this year. Nobody knows what district they're in, but yes, we are District 39 and in it to win it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, things are looking pretty good in Florida. Today we'll be covering again. It's going to be, I always I always say to my friends and family, Florida's kind of the tipping spear. The changing dynamics within the Republican Party across the country is very interesting. Texas has long been our stronghold for the better part of 20, 30 years now, but things have shifted. If you look at Florida over the past just 12 years, ever since 2010, Florida's been getting more and more conservative. So we'll be discussing that more today. Pastor Bankson, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how the campaign's going.
Well, hey, listen, welcome to Florida, the last free state in the union. That's how we feel down here. As you said, we're becoming more conservative, I believe, because people who love freedom are moving to Florida because they see it as a lifeboat right now. The race here is going great. Obviously, as you mentioned, I'm a pastor. I'm a pilot. I'm a police chaplain. I'm very involved in our community. Over 20 years ago, well, actually 27 years ago, we founded our church. And near the beginning, the Lord dealt with my heart, said, be involved in the areas of influence in your community. So we've basically made a point to do that. I've been on the board of the Chamber of Commerce for the last 18 years, a past chairman there as well. And again, just very involved in every part of the community. Little did I know it would lead to this point. Because for me, this has never been an ambition. And I don't see it that way. I do see it as public service, but I see that our nation is really being challenged. Our liberties, our freedom, our constitutional rights. And I just could not sit still and be silent, but to get involved. And now for the last 6 years, I've actually served as a city commissioner and vice mayor. And I thought, well, I'll continue to do that. And that's a great way to serve. But as you said, everything changed this year with our census, and they redesignated the districts. And our city became just front and center of our district in a great part. It's a rather large district, but we just have a great opportunity here. And right now, this is leaned a little bit towards the Democrat side, our district. So the party is really wanting to win this seat. They've given me tremendous support here. We had to beat out the Orange County chairman of the Republican Party to win the primary. And we did that in good style there. And so we're sitting in a good position. We're seeing a great race. We're working hard. We're knocking on doors. I like just talking directly to the people, good old pressing palms and seeing eye to eye. And people are very supportive and really ready for that change.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but according to zipdatamaps.com, they're probably one of the better websites, one of the better organizations that really has the best census data in the country. And what I didn't realize until earlier this year, between Tampa Bay, Florida, and between Orlando is actually the fastest growing segment of the entire country. On average, people don't realize this. On average, a city, a town will grow, 5, 10, maybe 15% if they're lucky. In between these two big cities, between Tampa and Orlando, this part of Florida is seeing 30% and higher people from out of state, people from out of town moving in there. So, Florida is just exploding. It's not just Texas. Florida is exploding. People are moving there largely because of Governor Ron DeSantis. I kind of like to coin the phrase with him, with similar to Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor. Ron DeSantis is definitely America's governor. So,
yes,
that's fantastic. So, and Pastor, you're obviously in Apopka, correct?
Yes. Apopka is the second largest city in the Orlando Metroplex. And yeah, we're getting between 1,000 to 1,200 a day moving into this area. Wow. And so it is definitely exploding here. We've seen a lot of growth in the last 6 years that I've been involved and seen a transition there. And yet we try to hold tight to the values that we enjoy here.
Yeah, 100%. And real quick, how's the state doing, post hurricane?
I'll tell you that what was amazing about that, again, our governor's response, he was right on top of that. And we saw people coming together. And that's something that's wonderful. What I love about our city, it's a very friendly city in that sense. Neighbor cares about neighbor. Yeah. And we saw that as a state, that just caring about one another, funds flowing in, resources, people flowing in. And, of course, the governor jumping right on that to make that pathway for them to be restored. It's amazing how quick the infrastructure, it was totally wiped out, and yet the infrastructure was very quickly brought back up so they can begin to get to rebuild.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah, I think I saw a report. There was like some 22,000 plus power line employees ready with their trucks to get out there immediately.
Yep.
I mean, just the preparedness. I mean, I saw the Democrats tried to, capitalize on the unpreparedness, but those media stories quickly folded. So it was pretty funny, actually.
Well, we've had a few hurricanes before, so we've had a little bit of. This is the main one for Governor DeSantis. And again, he was there earlier than anyone else. He was already making preparation. We know that because we live here.
100%, 100%. So tell me, so let's get back onto the main topic here. So, obviously you're a state house candidate in Florida's 39th district, the newly created one. For what I'm hearing, from the state party is your district is, center right kind of. I mean, you had a tough battle. You had a tough primary. You survived your primary. Your election's obviously next Tuesday. We're hearing good things. We're hearing you're up in the polls, by a comfortable 3 to 4 point lead. Now that being said, would you say your district is indicative of the entire state, or is your district a little more of a battle?
Well, my district is considered one of the battleground districts, and we really want to win this seat. And so again, we are in it to win it, as the old saying goes. We're full court press right now. We've rounded the final bend. We see the finish line, and we're in our sprint. But there again has been a real groundswell when we see what's gone on with the economy, the absolute failed policies of the administration in Washington. And thank God we've got a governor that has a brain and a backbone, I like to say. And I want to get up there and help him get that job done. It is America first, because as a father, I have a family. I care about others, but I am responsible first for my own, and then reaching out from there. And we've got to come back to those values, America first, Florida first, from our borders right here to supporting our law enforcement. I'm very strong on that, being a police chaplain. We want to just make sure that our infrastructure is sound, both, the technical and the people side of it.
Yeah, 100%. Nationwide, there's this increased battle going on, in Georgia, in Arizona, and, in Nevada, and what's funny is people don't realize, this reminds me of 2010, actually, with the Tea Party movement and the country so upset, so, angry about, Obamacare and the big shift, right? And I haven't really seen people this motivated, this upset with the national Democrat agenda since then. And, and I'm getting reports that Rhode Island's 2nd district is going red. Connecticut's 4th district is going red. New Hampshire's 1st district is going to go red. I mean, it's just, it's pretty much, it's an embarrassment when we're seeing traditionally longstanding blue seats are even in danger, and it should be a massive wake-up call to the Democratic Party, because their policies are radical and they are failing. There's a poll coming out of Rasmussen showing 87% of Americans do not support anything with the radical transgender movement. It's just, I mean, people want to be left alone, Pastor. So, and Florida is really that tipping spear. The Democrats would love to have Florida, and they're just not going to get it. I think Charlie Crist is down, at least, being generous here, at least 7 points. So, I mean, it's just, wow. And then you have the whole Val Demings thing against Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, yeah, he ran for president. Trump, beat him in his own state. But I feel the people of Florida love Rubio in the position that he's in. So and then you have Ron DeSantis. I mean, you have a full-fledged system of great people. Congressman Gates. You have, oh gosh, Sabatini. You have kind of the sassy guy in the legislature. So I mean, you have a lot of promising candidates. Even your lieutenant governor. And let's talk about her for just a second. Charlie Crist brought up an interesting point during the debate, because I watched the debate up here in Iowa, and he made a comment about well, Governor DeSantis, can you promise that you'll serve a full 4 years, because there are some rumors that he might run for president against Trump, which I wouldn't advise, or he might run as his VP. And people,
we won't let him go down here.
Well, people need him there. but even your lieutenant governor, though, let's talk about Jeanette Nunez. I mean, she would be the first, in my opinion, the first female governor you've had, and more importantly, the first Hispanic Cuban governor. So let's talk about her, because Florida would be in great hands with her leadership. So go ahead.
It would be. Yeah, again, there's strength in leadership there. She's mentored literally right beside Ron DeSantis, and has that same gear, that same vibe, a freedom lover. And that's what we need, a lover of freedom, a defender of freedom. And she is strong, she's poised, she's powerful, she's sharp. And yeah, she'd be ready to serve and step up. And I don't think there'd be any problem with that support behind her. And as you mentioned, though, when I want somebody to work on my car, I don't care whether they're male, they're female, what race they're. I want the one that's best suited to make my car run. And how much more our government. But that aside, there are different ones who look at those things and would, it just gives that extra push. So in both of those areas, she's perfect. I think she would do tremendous. So if for some reason America called and our governor had to answer, then we definitely have a good plan in our lieutenant governor.
Yeah, 100%. So, Pastor, one of the things that, I love about you is, you are one of those rare pastors, rare individuals who sees the Christian and political side. And a lot of times, especially now, more recently, there's been an overemphasis from certain individuals within the church to separate the two. And you're obviously not following that path. So, I guess my question for you is, how difficult is it? I guess a two-part question. How difficult has it been to campaign as a pastor in a difficult district? And number two, how do you really galvanize the Christian evangelical base to get motivated to vote?
Well, it is a challenge because even my theology changed over the years because we were basically taught along those lines without getting into the depth of that. And so as I begin to understand and see from the scriptures, Christ himself was constantly challenging the civil law because theirs was that mix of the theocratic law, but it was a civil law. And so he challenged the Pharisees. He says, you make laws to pass on others. You won't lift a little finger to take care of them yourself. And so God hates unjust weights and measures. These are things that deal with the practical side of living. Of course, he came to give us life and that more abundantly. He came to give us eternal life, but it doesn't stop on the spiritual level because God created every part of us and he cares about those who are struggling, those who are poor, those who are like the widow who only had one little bit of oil left and he just performed a miracle there. So again, for me, honestly, I just haven't focused on those who are the naysayers. I've just gone forward with a strong message of what I believe in, the passion, really feeling the Lord dealing with me to get in this arena. Because if we're not salt and light, then we're going to lose our influence completely. As in pre-World War II Germany, if we look at the state of the church there, the compromise that was there and the unwillingness to stand up, they lost their liberties to a socialist network that ended up just imploding upon them. And we see socialism nipping at our heels right now, integrating into our schools. I'm strong on education because, as I've said, when we won the primary, we had a meeting up in Tallahassee, and I told them there, we can pass all the great legislation we want right now, but if we lose our kids, it's over. Because they will turn this over. They're being indoctrinated. We have to take back our education system. And thank God we have a great start on that here in Florida, and I want to just continue that school choice and that ability. We need to bring back reading, writing, and arithmetic and get all the politics and indoctrination out of the classroom. 100%. Let people, raise their children with their values and just make sure that we stop that from the classroom to the locker room and make sure that we, that to me was just ridiculous. But, it showed that their lie basically falling in on themselves because they push this agenda. And now what do they do with men, performing against women? It just doesn't work.
Not at all. And that's another atrocity the left has tried to push these past 2 years. And that's what's so ironic is Biden, he tried to campaign on the moderate, sensible voice, and he's been anything but. I mean, I never thought I'd find somebody more radical than Obama. And oh my goodness. But no, what you're doing in Florida is just tremendous. I mean, like I said, I'm confident you're going to win. Me personally, I think you'll be the Speaker of the Florida House in about 6 years. That's just me being optimistic. But no, you're doing great things. Obviously, Veterans for America First has endorsed you as a pro-veteran, first responder candidate. And again, for everybody at home, people need to understand this. First responders are, yes, veterans, military, police, firefighters, and also pastors. Dr. Bankson here can easily attest to the fact that pastors are on the front lines. How many hospitals have you been to? How many funerals have you been to? How many people have you had to counsel on a daily basis? I always joke around, but it's true. Presidents and pastors have the hardest job in the world. So,
well, and again, being with our first responders, supporting them, they have to put on that strong face going forward. They run towards what everybody else runs away from, but they still have families. They still have to decompress that. The PTSD doesn't just stop on the military field. It is in these other areas. We deal directly with our police and fire first responders right here, and the things that they face, and being there for them and supporting them. The demoralization that's happened from attacking our police departments and defunding them. My goodness, we should be supporting them more than ever before. And of course, our wonderful military that we have freedom because they were willing to lay theirs on the line. 100%. And we owe them just an absolute debt of gratitude and of service. And so I love being a part of that great community.
100%. Yeah. So, again, so moving a little bit outside of Apopka now, obviously, Governor DeSantis is going to win. Rubio will win re-election. It's going to be I think Florida in particular, more than any other state, is going to have the biggest shift. If we win Georgia, it'll be barely. If we win Pennsylvania, it'll be barely. But I think Florida is going to be that huge staple that's going to just tell the country, no. And it's going to be so beautiful. Now let's move on just a little bit, post-election next week. Do you, in your opinion, and this is just all opinion, we're just talking about key important issues. In your opinion, do you see President Trump announcing soon?
I think so. I mean, he's so anxious, he can't hardly stand it. So, with, of course, all of this circus that's going on to, from raiding Mar-a-Lago and all the things that they're trying to do there, there's always the diversion tactic. And that seems to be what the left loves to do, point fingers and divert. Of course, Pelosi, we're not supposed to attack her now. And that's just, it's ridiculous what's going on there. But yeah, he's too much of a go-getter. His thumbs are itching to get back on the Twitter machine, I believe. But I do think he will. And now I don't have any inside scoop in that, just that kind of gut intuition. There's too much life in him. Yeah. And my goodness, to contrast he and Sleepy Joe, it's comatose Joe as far as I'm concerned. And, I think he's anxious to get up there and lead in the fight.
Well, and it's just such an embarrassment from the left. I mean, the whole J6, hearings, which have all been in complete secrecy. There's over 20,000 hours of footage that the congressional Democrat hearings about J6 won't show. So, I mean, that's strike one. Strike two is raiding his home unconstitutionally as a private citizen. And stage three is this effort to try to get his tax returns. I mean, for everybody listening at home, no president is required to release tax returns ever. Do most of them do it? Yeah, but it's the fact that we've never seen an individual so harassed, so beaten down over and over and over again. I mean, it's just. I agree with you, Pastor. I think he's going to announce fairly soon. It's funny. These Democrats have all these congressional hearings against him, and all those congressional hearings will dissolve in about 2 months. So, yeah. and it's laughable at best. But and fun fact, actually, he's coming to my hometown, Sioux City, Iowa, tonight, actually, for a beautiful rally with Governor Reynolds. So, but no, it's just people have to understand. He has unfinished business. He was massively successful. Now, Pastor, you and I definitely know people from the Christian right who maybe don't like him, who would say, maybe it's time to move on. He was, soft on gay rights. He was soft on transgenderism. Now, I mean, I disagree with that. He never passed any legislation that supported that ever. And to me, actions speak louder than words. But there's a big movement in the Christian right and with evangelicals who have this belief that A, it's time to move on. B, they feel like they don't have anybody to really vote on because Trump is very, loud personality, and Biden is just such a complete socialist nut job. Christians are feeling that they don't have anybody to vote for, and there's the old expression about the Exodus. Correct me if I'm wrong here. 1829,
1821,
1821. Excuse me, the 1820 Exodus 1821 candidate, and I disagree with that notion from a lot of pastors. I don't think it's appropriate for us to have a hands-off approach because we can't find an Exodus 1821 candidate. In all reality, we probably, out of the 7,000 Republicans, and we're getting a little deep here, but out of the 7,000 Republican candidates across the country, maybe 50 actually fit that mold perfectly. And my concern is when it comes to Trump and other Republican candidates, it is your job as a pastor. It is the evangelicals' job. It's largely the reason why we're in the mess that we are is because the church was forced to be silent a long time ago, and they never bucked the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's their job now to rally around President Trump. It's their job now to rally around the Republican Party. And I don't mean blindly support them. I mean hold them accountable. You know, when Ronna McDaniel, Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, created the Gay Youth Republican Wing back in January, the evangelicals should have, in unison, told her that's not appropriate or at all helpful. You know, and the same thing with President Trump, who, you know, again, his policies are massively successful and, in my opinion, massively Christian. But when he falls out of line, it's the job of the pastors and multiple pastors to rally around him and say, you need to get right with God to lead better. So, I mean, what are your thoughts with that? I know I kind of ramble a little bit, but it's an important topic that I have run into a lot of times with pastors in Tennessee, in Florida, in Iowa, in Utah. So, help me out.
Well, again, obviously, we all have to walk by our conscience. We will answer before God. So everyone, that becomes the personal challenge. Am I defying my own conscience? And so that really is the standard that we have to follow. But looking at that, when, as you said, you look at the accomplishment, you look at the focus, where are these at? Sometimes I think part of this has to do with which hill do I choose to die on?
Exactly.
What am I willing to put all of my effort in? That doesn't mean I'm not willing to charge the other hill. And that was my real question. The fact that I see some of these areas that I feel are morally, there's a lack in pursuing after that. But is there an advancement of that as well? If it's a neutral thing, is it a matter of we are shoring up this first hill and then we'll go there? D-Day, we landed on the beach first. Then we took Cherbourg and we moved on, from there through France on finally into Germany. Germany was the target, but you can't take Germany if you don't take the beach. And then if you don't take France and if you don't move forward from there, if you don't have the supply line. So I think we have to think strategically, not to cancel out the standard. And as you said, that's where the church needs to be the church. That's why the separation of church and state was a false notion that they forwarded from one letter from Jefferson, of course, to the Danbury Baptist that had to do with doctrinal concerns. And will the federal government override and overstep? And that, again, as I like to fight for the First and Second Amendment, we need the Ninth and 10th as well. We need to get back to the importance of states' rights. Yeah. And from there, make sure that we have that moral voice that is bringing that influence, that if things begin to get out of line, then there is something that says, well, wait a minute, that's wrong, and here's why. Yeah. And not just whine and cry, but give a reason. And what I do like is that he has given great access to ministers around him. Mm-hmm. I've talked to some of those that are very close to him and asked them those questions that were of concern to me. And, their response was the conversations they held, that there was truly a genuine belief and foundation in him, how, albeit, he's not a theologian, he hasn't claimed to be, and yet at the same time, we need someone of moral character. So I still think Exodus 18:21, there's still a standard there that, such as fears God, that is beyond reproach, someone that can't be bought. This is something nice with him. He doesn't need to be bought. He has it all, and I think it's amazing the degree of character that we saw in his own children, as opposed to Hunter Biden. Absolute opposites, where they devote themselves of opportunity to make great wealth. Yeah. They limited that and gave up made great sacrifice for our nation. And we see the exact opposite in the present administration, he and his son working together with even our enemies. Yeah. It's chilling what's going on there. So to have someone that has a strength like that, that can lead, I can see the hand of God in that. And I believe our role is to be influencers upon those who are there.
Exactly. And for those of you at home listening, Exodus 18:21 says, but select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, and so on and so forth. And that's what we're talking about. We're trying to find go ahead, Pastor.
And it begins with capable. Now, back in 76, I remember this. Yes, I am that old. I earned all these gray hairs. And Reagan, in fact, was the first president I was privileged to vote for. But I remember Jimmy Carter and him going forward, and because he was willing to say, I'm born again. Well, people responded to that who were from an evangelical background. However, when he got in office, it was a disaster. And he meant well, like the old Southern saying, bless his heart. But and not to disparage a former president. I believe in honoring, respecting institutions, but the bottom line is we have to first be capable. And that's the first thing in the list. And then obviously have the character to back it up, the character to match the call, as I like to say. So we want to see all of those things.
Well, and that's where I disagree, with certain individuals, obviously within the Christian faith and in the evangelicals, who say, well, if I can't find a candidate like that, I'm just not going to vote. To me, that's not a solution. To me, that's inaction, and to me, that is bordering on sin. What we need to do is we need to rally around those in office, in power. Get out the fakes, get out the weak ones, get out the non-believers, obviously, but rally around those in positions like President Trump and so many others, and say, we will support you, but we demand a higher standard.
There you go.
That's what we should be doing. And like I said, that's why it's so refreshing to have somebody like you, because you do fit that mold. I will honestly say you are one of the 50, in my opinion, that does exude that Exodus 18:21 candidate. So again, we're in an uphill battle here. Florida, like I said always before, is the tipping spear of the country. But yeah, it'll be an interesting, I think, and people realize, the midterm elections may be next Tuesday. But guys, the election season is not over. I guarantee you, President Trump will announce soon, and we're going to be thrust right into presidential politics by January, and it's going to get nasty. So, like I said, just that way, we're all on the same page. But anyway, so, Pastor, what else would you like to bring up before I let you go? I know you're a busy man. You got more doors to knock on. You're incredibly hardworking.
I'll tell you, just having a passion for freedom. If we don't have a passion, there's knowledge, but if there's no passion, there's no performance. And everybody needs to know their voice matters, not just in the vote, but with your neighbors, with your friends, not being afraid to approach them. And just, let's drop the names, let's drop these things and just ask them, are you doing better now than you were before? How's your pocketbook? Are you having to choose between your gas tank and your supper table? They're very practical things. And we are seeing that literally across the board. We are seeing people who have typically been in the Democrat Party that are saying, you know what, I'm tired of it. Because they have it, like Elvis left the building, they've left America. The left is left. The problem is then we can't be, the right cannot just keep swerving further to that left. We have to hold our standards accountable, and we have to let the laws of nature and nature's God undergird our legal system. Yeah. And we have to fight for, I believe that we've had stolen from us some of the key issues. The Republican Party was started to end slavery, and yet that's been turned around that almost like we were pro-slavery. And we've got to go back and take back some of those things because we have the answer. We can't be timid and shy in those things. We need to be bold and say, here's the truth. And people want answers, and it's making a difference. We are seeing that change. And so I'm just ready to press forward. I'm ready to get up to Tallahassee and help our governor for our constitutional rights, our First and Second Amendment. I want to put something on his desk. Fighting for life. I'll tell you, we are the conscience of this nation is at stake. So we've got to fight for life and value life from its beginning to its natural conclusion.
100%, 100%. And, if you could lovingly put on his desk a bill that says if there's any state law that supersedes Christian biblical law, it can't become a law.
That would solve a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone, in closing here, just remember, the good Lord does call us to, humbly submit to our governing authorities, at the state and federal level. But once those biblical laws, Christian laws are broken, it is our duty to be respectfully disobedient. There's so many issues right now that have become political that were cemented in Christianity. God decided those laws thousands of years ago, and it ranges from homosexuality to transgenderism to even taxes. It's just we need more people like Dr. Bankson to get into Tallahassee. And if I had it my way, he'd be in Congress and in DC to set those wackos straight. But anyway, one step at a time. But Dr. Bankson, Pastor Dr. Bankson, there's so many things I could call you.
I was a commissioner here and a pastor. They said, "What do we call you?" And we came up with commissionary, but now I'm going to have to change that. But again, it's just servant, being a servant. That's what we're all called to. Servant
leader, absolutely. And you exude that. Just do me a favor when you get to Tallahassee and you have your door in your office, just put on there, Pastor, Doctor, Commissioner, State House.
Pick a title.
Yeah, exactly. All right, where can people find you there, good sir?
DougBankson.com. We made it real simple. Just the name Bankson without a T in it. Bankson. Doug Bankson. com. And again, we'll appreciate any support. Our financial support ends by midnight tonight, so can't receive any more funds there. But obviously, our supporters they're very excited, and we're ready for Tuesday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I firmly believe that you will win. So thank you again for your time. I know you're very busy. Get out there and knock doors again and again and again. I'm confident you'll win. And everybody living in the Apopka area, anybody living in Central Florida, please get out and vote for Dr. Doug Bankson. He is a phenomenal individual. He's a strict constitutionalist. He's a supporter of veterans' rights. Most importantly, he is a servant leader of Christ. And that's exactly what we need. We need more of that in Tallahassee. We need more of that in Atlanta. We need more of that everywhere, especially in Washington, D.C. So, Dr. Bankson, thank you again, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.